It's Peter Bruce with Ryan Oler, along with City Councilman Jeff Orovitz, and Jonathan from the Flagstaff Liberty Alliance is back to discuss food production and sustainable agriculture and eating healthy and being conscientious about where our food comes from. Right, Jonathan?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, before we get on to the food issue, let's go to Flagstaff Liberty Alliance and your mission statement. What is the group all about, and what's your aim as an organization?
Well, our I don't have the mission statement in front of me, but our overall aim is pretty simple. It's just promoting local things that we think are good for the community, increasing liberties, freedoms, and anything that goes along with constitutional issues, whether it's from the First Amendment or the Second Amendment or the 10th Amendment. I was listening to your conversation with the Tucson mayor, and I don't know if this is the answer. I haven't run it by the other members of Flagstaff Liberty Alliance, but I think it'd be good to have the discussion of maybe if the Grand Canyon was a state park, or the possibility of that. The state has, 15 or 20 or 30 parks, and I can guarantee it wouldn't be shut down if this was a state park. There's so much of an impact on the state. So the Flag Liberty Alliance, we're all about self-sufficiency, anything with local liberties, permaculture, hydroponics. We talk about all these things, but we're pretty broad group, but basically it comes down to freedom and liberty.
And Jonathan, and those subjects came up Tuesday night. I mean, a part of this food resolution was just a statement that says we encourage individuals the right to grow their own food, produce their own food, and we discourage any laws from the city that discourage that. I mean, that was the gist of it. But there was still, while using applicable laws, there were still food safety laws. Nobody was suggesting that this becomes like this wild west of food. It was just a statement, and maybe you can touch on the feeling of the meeting the other night, because like you had said earlier, and if people are joining us that didn't hear you in the last hour, there was broad support until very close to the meeting.
Yeah, there was. There was a lot of people all throughout the community, through all sorts of groups, that were supporting it, and that's what I think you find when you have a common sense idea like this. We had people from across the spectrum that were not just supporting it passively, but that were really excited about it. We had people from all over the place, politically speaking, that really can get behind the idea of self-sufficiency and local food. But unfortunately, some of these groups and some people, they somehow think that they own the ideas of sustainability or local food, that they seem to think that they conceive of these things, and that if anybody else touches on them, that their toes are getting stepped on. And that's what we saw. We saw just this support, this conflict kind of rise up out of nowhere. And to me, it's hypocritical, it's sad, it's identity politics. But the real troubling thing, those things exist in politics. There are big egos and all sorts of things going on. But the thing that's troubling is they were willing to sacrifice a good idea, a basic good idea. They were willing to sacrifice it just because it had not come from who they deemed the appropriate sources. If F3, if F cubed had put something out like this, I would have absolutely got behind it, and it would have passed last night. But because there were, some people that are opposed to Flagstaff Liberty Alliance and the ideas that we talk about, it got railroaded. So I'm still hopeful that something will come to pass, but we'll see what happens.
Jonathan from Flagstaff Liberty Alliance, the guest on Flag Mornings on Flagstaff Country. Jonathan, if you could, let our listeners know in a synopsis kind of statement, give us a capsule of what the resolution, it's a non-binding resolution, by the way, so you didn't want to change anything, just make a statement. What does the statement say?
Right. So the statement says that it starts out by saying that because the city of Flagstaff has a history of residents growing and eating and consuming their own food, that we think that we want to make sure that continues, that we want to recognize the right of individuals to grow and eat their own food. whether that happens to be vegetable gardens, fruit, or agricultural stuff, or animals, as long as it's within the existing zoning code. We want to encourage that. And so it wasn't anything new, it wasn't anything revolutionary, but we wanted to put it on the record that the city of Flagstaff supports local food, sustainably raised food, and high-quality food. If I grew stuff in my garden this year that you can't buy at the store, it doesn't last. And so if I want to get that, my only option is to grow it. And a good example of this, some time ago, and this was on the county level, but some time ago, somebody wanted to open a slaughterhouse out in the county where people could take their livestock that they raised and have it processed, and that was shut down. And so while this wouldn't have had any impact on that directly, it would have at least set the stage and say, these are the sort of things we support. I would love to have some place, if I raised, I'm going to raise another cow or fatten up another cow in November probably, and I'd love to have a local place where I could take it to get it processed without jumping through hoops. I know there's a lot of great local game processors and stuff, and that's what I'll end up doing. But it'd be nice if the city and the county encouraged local food production across the board.
Jonathan, and you just touched on part of the resolution. I'm just going to read one little paragraph, which was, what I hear from most people after they read it is, how could you be opposed to it? Whereas, as part of the right to raise food for themselves and their families, the people have and maintain the right to raise such food on their own land, subject to applicable laws. This is what we're objecting to. This kind of statement, subject to applicable laws. And like you said, people came out all of a sudden and said, oh my, there's going to be salmonella, there's going to be this, there's going to be that. And it had nothing to do with that, nothing to do with saying we're not going to have food safety anymore.
No, it came out, and at the end of the day, I'm completely convinced that this failed merely because of the group that, because Flagstaff Liberty Alliance.
Didn't somebody say that?
What's that?
Didn't somebody say that during the public participation?
Oh, yeah. They equated us to hood-wearing slave owners, which I cringe at today. And that was a member of F Cubed. Somebody, I think, who's run for city council in the past actually said that about us. And it's foolish. It's crazy. It's irresponsible. And they seem to think that there's some hidden agenda, that we're behind food because we really have some secret thing we want to pass. And I mean, it goes back to it comes back to the source. If one of them had done something, I would have got behind it and supported it. But at the end of the day, they love to talk about sustainability. They love to talk about local food, but they don't do anything about it. All they do is they want to talk about it. When somebody does, get out and start working for it. I mean, we collected hundreds of signatures for the original resolution, which was even more aggressive than the one that was proposed last night. We collected hundreds of signatures, and somehow that offended a couple members of the city council. They kind of went back to F Cubed, and it fell apart from there.
All right, so what is the future of this non-binding resolution to encourage self-sufficiency in food production within Flagstaff?
Well, as I understand it, Vice Mayor Evans came out at the 11th hour with her version of a food ordinance. Resolution, excuse me. And so her and herself and Jeff are going to get together and see if they could get something they both support. And, I'll get behind it as long as it stays with the intent of maintaining the, and reaffirming the rights of individuals to do these things. Her resolution seemed to get away from the impetus being the rights of individuals and more behind just sustainability in general. But we'll see what happens. I'm hopeful.
Well, Jonathan, and I'm going to keep working on trying to get this resolved, and I think that we can come to a compromise, come up with a good version that maintains the intent, and I look forward to working with your group and other groups. I want to work with as many people as possible to try to make this something the community can get behind, and I've talked to different groups who came out in opposition. So how do people get in touch with your group? And I'm sure you have the actual resolution posted on a website or something, and final words here.
We do have the resolution posted. If you want to get in touch with us, we have our monthly meeting the third Thursday of every month. This one is kind of going to be a unique one. It's our annual meeting, so we'll be redeciding board members and running for board positions. And if anybody wants to get involved, we're nonpartisan. We'd love to have you out there. We also, on the 12th, there'll be a march against Monsanto that we're participating in at City Hall from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And we'd love to have speakers. If you're an expert out there on gardening or self-sufficiency or agriculture or, aquaponics or civil liberties or using, handguns appropriately or Second Amendment, any of those sorts of things, get in touch with us. We'd love to have you. We'd love to hear from you. We've heard from a lot of candidates for different political offices. We've had Bob Thorpe there. You've been there, Jeff, and we really like to hear from all aspects of the community. And so we usually meet the third Thursday at 6:30 on the mezzanine level of, what is it?
Hotel Weatherford.
Yeah,
Hotel
Weatherford.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking for a new location that's a little quieter, but that's where we'll be on the 17th of October. So come down and shake some hands and see what we're all about.
Jonathan from the Flagstaff Liberty Alliance, thanks for your input this morning and your opinions on Flag Mornings on Flagstaff Country, 93.5 AM 930.